My great-great-grandfather, who graduated from West Point in 1865 as a civil engineer, actually was sent by the United States to command a delegation that went to Tanzania. He timed what's called the transit of Venus. It's when Venus passes in front of the sun. And by timing it, you could then triangulate and determine how far away the Earth was from the sun. That's called an astronomical unit. He helped do that. So ties to space in my family go all the way back to 1864. My dad taught astronomy at West Point when I was a kid. And when I was a kid at West Point, man first walked on the moon. And I remember sitting in my living room watching man walk on the moon, and then turning around and going to my dining room and building an Apollo rocket, a model rocket. And so I've always been interested in space. The jury was still out on whether the law was going to pass that established the Space Force, and if it did, what that law would say. And so shortly before the law was signed, I was asked if I would serve as the CSO, and I said absolutely, I'd serve. And then that night, at a hangar at Andrews Air Force Base, I was invited to go to the signing of the National Defense Authorization Act. And although I was asked by the Secretary of the Air Force if I would serve as the CSO, we didn't know what was going to be announced that night. The president stood up and made comments, and one of the big initiatives out of this law was the establishment of the Space Force. And so he talked about that, and then he turned and said, and General J. Raymond is going to be the first Chief of Space Operations. So that was really the first time, although there was inklings that it might happen, that was the first time that I knew. And I just remember sitting back, and there's a great picture, my favorite picture of all time in service was a picture of me and General Goldfein, and shaking hands and the look in our eyes that, hey, it happened. And right after that ended, I got on an airplane and flew back to Peterson, because that's where I was stationed. And we had a little champagne toast on the plane. And then it hit me, and now we got a lot of work to do.
But today, this oath is historic, and I'll tell you, it's hard to match.
So my own leadership philosophy has been centered around a few things. I want to make sure that everybody that's on the team understands how they contribute to the mission. The second thing that I try to do is hold really high standards, and then holding people accountable to meet those standards, including myself, and then delegating leadership down to the lowest level. So you have to build leadership at all levels. This can't be driven by the Chief of Space Operations. You have to have everybody in the service kind of putting their heads into this game as we build this service and running in the same direction and being empowered to make those decisions. When it came time to look for who might be the Chief Master Sergeant of the Space Force, it was not a decision I took lightly, because I knew how important this was. If you look at Chief Toberman's background, he's a linguist, has deployed many times. He had been a major command chief. He had been the U.S. Space Command chief when I was the U.S. Space Command commander. And with his skills of personnel skills and having worked at the Pentagon, it was a really easy fit to ask him to serve as my partner. I wouldn't say I've accomplished, it's not my accomplishment, it's our team's accomplishment. And I think as I look back on my career, I'm blessed. I never would have thought I would have had the career I've had. I thought I would, be in the Air Force for 4 years and then go look for something else. I've been really lucky. I've had great bosses. I've had great mentors. I've had great friends. I've had great coworkers. And what I've tried to do is just do the best job I could do wherever I was planted. And I will tell you that as I look back on my career, I have gotten to do things that are just incredible. I mean, I've gone all over the world. I've met with world leaders. I've got to launch some really cool rockets. I've gotten to do some incredible space missions. And I've got to serve with just remarkable people. All of us, every one of us has volunteered to serve our country, to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And to be able to be part of that and come to work every day with cool people is the thing that I will reflect most on. And then if you look at over the last 3 years, what the Guardians have been able to deliver for our nation is something that I think we'll all look back on a few years down the road and say, we did good. And that you can look back and say, we got a service up and running and started, and I really believe that it will continue to deliver a great advantage for our nation.